Do not be alarmed. It's just a couple of guys. Who are these guys? Ray Regina, beloved former mayor of St. Charles, lifetime educator, and Pat Crimmins, a Geneva lawyer, but he's actually okay. From Elgin to Aurora, from Naperville to Elburn, these guys are gonna talk everything. So, here's Pat and Ray.
Hello, friends, and welcome to a candidate forum edition of Just a Couple of Guys with your host, Just Win Baby himself.
That's correct.
Pat Crimmins.
Ugly?
And you're ugly, or
No,
just
the
Win
win
Baby?
was ugly,
Okay.
yes.
And yours truly, Ray Regina. And we are happy that we're going to start a series of candidate forums starting today. And Pat, why don't you tell our audience a bit about what's the lineup here for the next three editions?
Well, today we're going to do the county board chairman and the candidate running against her. Later on, we're going to be doing the state's attorney's office, and then we'll do the judge's race in the 4th sub-circuit, St. Charles, Geneva, Batavia. And I think that's it, isn't it?
Countywide races. That's the emphasis here. That everybody in our listening audience can vote for. We're not going to get involved in a little, this district over here, this district over here. We hear all month. But
right.
The fact of the matter is that today, Madam Chairman herself, Corinne Pierog, the County Board Chair for Kane County, will be here. And later on, we're going to talk to her opponent, the Republican nominee for County Board Chair, Lance Bell. All of that.
Well, we should disclose. I wanted to disclose the fact that we have sent the questions in advance to the candidates here today, and we will do that in the future. We are allowed to follow up with their answers, and they understand that. And we'll disclose any conflicts we might have along the way.
And Pat, that's a great point. And we did that. We started modeling that 2 years ago when we did the Elgin mayor's race, and we sent both candidates the questions at a time. We stuck pretty faithfully to those same questions, like you say. There's always a follow-up based upon what they say, but for the most part, we're trying to be fair and unbiased in our attempt to get information to the voters. And by the way, speaking of that, early voting starts pretty soon.
The 26th, I believe.
September 26th.
Right.
So you see, we almost have a full month where you can cast a ballot early through the mail or at one of the locations here in the county.
What do you like to do?
I have already accepted the envelope. The envelope comes here, and it's easy breezy, and I send it right back. It's a beautiful thing.
There's something to be said, though, for the waiting in line and the...
It's true, and I know several people who say, I would only vote on election day.
Right.
And that's fine. I mean, it's for different people. It's a different mode to fulfill a very important obligation you have as a citizen of this country. And Lord knows we have a number of races going on countywide, statewide, and of course nationally as well. So.
And you might learn something about a candidate in the interim from the early voting to the actual election day that had you voted already, you would have lost.
Well, that's a very important point, and that's why we're doing these forums real early, so we get the information out to them. Anyway, we're going to take a commercial break from one of our fine sponsors, and we'll be back with Madam Chairman herself, Corinne Pierog, in just a moment. You stay tuned.
Want to save on some of the biggest names in streaming on the network made for streaming? X marks the spot. Now you can add the new Xfinity Stream Saver that includes Netflix, Peacock, and Apple TV+. That's Xfinity Stream Saver for just $15 a month. All your favorites, all in one place. Only from Xfinity. For more watching and less spending, X marks the spot. Do it all on the network made for streaming and bring on the good stuff.
So we're back, and we are happy to have the County Board Chair, Corinne Pierog, here with us, and we're going to do Mr. Bell afterwards.
Yes.
I'm going to talk about the county board race.
Okay.
Thank you very much for being here.
It's a pleasure.
It's very exciting. Just a couple of guys. We do what we can to make things interesting. So everybody's clear that she's been given some questions in advance, and we're going to ask those questions with follow-up. I think the first thing that people would like to know is a little bit about yourself, biography, your employment, education, everything that got you to the point of your original run for the county board,
Okay.
and what you've been doing since.
All right. Well, since I have been managing the county board of 24 people, going through 2 different boards, having, I can't tell you how many, probably over 1,000, several thousand resolutions being passed, a couple of budgets, 3 budgets, as a matter of fact. The first budget I entered into. So that's what I've been working on.
Right.
Okay, so that's all that. My past is I was born in Chicago. Family moved to, when I was 13 years old, in the middle of 8th grade, to California. And
I lived in California.
yeah, it was Orange County we settled in. Yeah, that's where we lived. Eventually, people said it was beautiful, Huntington Beach. So
Right.
I learned how to swim in the ocean without getting, first time I went into the ocean, I almost drowned, and I thought it won't let it defeat me, and I became a really good swimmer.
Good,
I mean,
good.
really, really
Yeah.
good swimmer. So I once swam and beat an 18-foot wave, body surfing.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I was a very strong swimmer. But then I went, got my degree there, my university degree, and I went up to San Francisco, got a master's degree, and wanted to go to New York City. So I moved to New York City and started my career there. I was a professor
Oh.
and ended up teaching at St. John's University for a very long period of time, became Associate Dean of the College of Liberal Arts.
Did you know 𝐂𝐚𝐴, the basketball coach?
I didn't know him personally, but he was there.
Was.
The Redman.
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
It was the Redman. I taught on the Staten Island campus and ended up coaching the speech and debate team.
Oh, fun.
So that was very good.
We have a lot in common.
You did the same.
Well, I coached mock trial. I lived in the
Oh,
Bay
that's
Area.
right,
I was
that's
born in
right.
Chicago.
Well,
That's amazing.
San Francisco's beautiful. The Bay Area is
I'm
beautiful.
announcing here today my run for county board chairman in 2044.
I'll leave you all the files.
Sure, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So you have been with the county board as chair for 1 term?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Any
did the
political
20
experience before that?
I was on the St. Charles School Board for 8 years,
Yeah.
and I ran for state senate.
Oh,
I was recruited to run for state senate, and once I walked onto that door, I just closed it behind me and just fell in love with politics.
sure. Now, if people want to learn more about you, I would assume you have a internet website so that people can read more about your biography and things of that nature. What is that?
It's 𝐿𝐴𝐚𝐴𝐼𝑛Pierog.com.
Okay. We did want to talk a little bit, as we would for any candidate, as to why you're seeking re-election, and in your case, why you ran for the office the first time.
I was going to run for county board, and then I was asked to consider running for county chair. And I thought about it, and I actually was asked 3 times before I accepted, because I wanted to make sure that I really could get a handle on what the job was about and what the need and what I could bring to the board. And people kept on saying, you should give it a try. I think you'll do well. And so I did, and I believe I have. I want to run again because we are still in a financial stressful period of time. And I want to make sure that some of the programs that we have going are going to continue, that we are going to have a budget that reflects the needs of the county rather than a political need. And there's a big difference between that because it's always been political need for the last 11 years rather than actually the need for county residents. We're a very, very small county as far as governance goes, and that's one of your questions as well we can talk about. But move it forward appropriately, not overspend, but not underspend.
Okay.
Pat talked
Related projects that go with all of that.
Right.
Pat talked about leadership up here, and of course, as a county board chair, you are a leader. You're a leader here in the county. I would ask the question: what specific leadership skills do you think you provide that are better than most? Everybody has strengths and weaknesses and so on. The leadership skills that you think you bring to the table that are above the curve.
I listen.
Mhm.
I really do listen to people as they talk. I listen to our board members. I may disagree with them, and they'll see my face or they'll see an action that I may take. But I really listen to them, clearly listen. I think that's part of the training that I received as a teaching speech for so long, and teaching people how to listen and listen well and have an open mind as you're listening. I really do support diversity of opinions, but I like diversity of opinions that are based on fact, on reality, not on supposition or make-believe, because that can really have a negative impact upon policy decisions that we're making for the board. One of the unique things about this, like if you manage a not-for-profit or a smaller organization, you can go one way or the other.
Mhm.
515,000 people are depending upon the decisions we're making. So you can't go too far right and you can't go too far left. You gotta stay in the middle. And there's these drivers that go right and left because of the issue du jour or because of a passion a board member brings. And those may be good, they'll push you either way. But the basic decision is what is going to last the test of time, what is good for the county as a whole, what is going to survive me, what's going to survive any of the 24 board members, but have a real strong contribution to the values and the people of Kane County.
Election campaigns sometimes get sticky, they sometimes get mean. But we're going to start the conversation about the campaign with a simple question. Mr. Lance Bell is your opponent here. I'd like you to tell our audience something that you like about your opponent.
Well, I've never had a chance to speak with him, so I've never met him. No, so my observation is going to be based on what I've observed. I can say that he has a very vocal, very dedicated group of supporters.
Okay.
Okay.
That's simple.
I just wanted to throw in a question. I guess it's not on the list, but it's a fair follow-up, I think. You talked a little bit about the last 11 years before you.
Mm-hmm.
This county is in transition, I think it's fair to say, from a
Absolutely.
Republican mainstay strength county to now more of a Democrat hold, right?
We're purple. We're definitely purple.
Purple.
I agree.
But most of the main office holders are Democrats.
Correct.
At this point, I think, with the exception of the coroner, maybe.
Correct.
But did you find that to be something that you had to deal with in government in your first term? That transition, you know what I mean?
Because I wanted to work in a bipartisan, and I made that as part of my platform, and I wanted to honor the platform. So I asked he was a board member then, he lost a primary, so he's no longer on the board. He was working for the state's attorney. But at that point, he was on the board, 𝐂𝐚𝐧𝐝, to be my vice chair. Because again, I wanted to, knowing that forever, I was the first Democrat, forever it had been Republican leadership.
Right.
I needed to have that insight as I was moving forward with governance. So I brought him in. There are many Democrats who went, "Oh my gosh, what are you doing?" But I said, "No. I'm going to follow my values, which I think the values that I was voted in for, is to be representative of everybody's concerns and needs. And it's hard. It's hard."
Let's get to a little more difficult area here, which is the fiscal health of the county.
Okay.
It's my understanding we have a $28 million budget shortfall. Is that accurate?
The money, theoretically, yes. Factually, we're not allowed to have an unbalanced budget, so we have moved money out of the reserve fund from the American Rescue Plan. So those reserves that we were given, and now we have moved money to the budget.
Okay.
So the budget now is balanced.
So the reserve fund, that COVID money, I guess, for want of a better term, was sitting in some pool. There were restrictions as to its use, right?
This was reimbursement, general reimbursement for costs, particularly for compensation.
Okay, so that money was moved over, and that took care of the budget shortfall.
For several years.
Do we have any more COVID money available?
$8 million, is it $8 or $9 million we have left in the fund before we start going into our 90-day reserve fund, and that'll be faced next year.
Okay, is
for
that
the
earmarked?
26 budget?
I'm sorry, is that earmarked for anything, or is that just in reserve?
It's in reserves.
Now, it's my understanding that we're going to try and seek a sales tax by and through a referendum this spring. Is that right?
That's correct.
And can you tell the folks a little bit about that?
Oh, sure, I'd be happy to. It's a sales tax, and that would be based on commodities, not in this bottle of water, for instance. It would not be that. But it would be if you're buying paper or folders. So it is a commodity cost. It's not just for the people who shop, live in Kane County. It's for anybody who comes into Kane County to buy whatever that commodity be, that item, that same pair of shoes, socks, whatnot. If you think of the Premium Outlet Mall during the holiday season, people are coming from, and back to school time, all over from Illinois. They're coming from Chicago. They're coming all over, and they're sometimes international people who are coming because of the quality of the stores there. Everyone would buy something and they would pay that tax. And it's 0.75%.
I understand. Now, is that, did
0.75 of a penny, I should say.
I understand. Did we find that to be more palatable as opposed to an increase in property taxes, or is this perhaps in addition to an increase in property
Well, I
taxes?
think no. Well, we didn't. Once again, it's been 14 years. 14 years.
The tax
since
rates have come down. The property tax rate has come down in the county.
It has. We have not raised it in 14 years. And if we were, think of the $29 million, right?
Right.
That pool. It's a very pragmatic decision that the board made. If we were to increase property tax levy this year, for next year's budget, we'd bring in about $2.5 million, which does not really supplement that $29 million budget deficit.
Right.
It would take us a very long period of time to get caught up with that. Plus, we're getting a lot of concerns that property taxes are about reaching maximum capacity here in Kane County. No, having been a former school board member, I understand the importance of public education.
Sure.
And honor it,
Quality
support it.
public education. Right.
Absolutely, high quality throughout the county. But there, it's very high. It's very high. So people are growing concerned. And the other problem we had to go back is that under my past administration, they never took, it was opposed to taking new growth.
Mm-hmm.
So all that new buildings that were being put in were never taxed properly. So we've only taken new growth for about the last 7 years. So all that previous new growth was not taxed. So we have less tax revenue that we should have. We are one of the lowest tax counties in the whole region.
All right, well, let me ask you the difficult question.
Let me go back, if I may, to the 75. So with the reason why the board decided this is that we would be able to bring in, if it gets passed, if the voters, this gives the voters the authority to say yay or nay.
It is a referendum, and it's scheduled for the spring,
It's
correct?
their decision.
Right.
That we could bring in about $52 million, and this will go specifically, has to go specifically to public safety.
Which defined as what?
It's the courts, it's the coroner, it's the courts, public defender, and juvenile justice.
State's attorney.
And state's attorney as well, of course.
Okay.
Of course.
So I would imagine Mr. Bell might ask this question. I'm going to ask this question. Why is it that we don't look at our expenditures before we start seeking additional monies through tax?
I think that's an excellent question. Excellent question. 80% of our budget is for judicial public safety. Some things are out of our control, meaning that we've got the Safety Act that came through, and it was actually a loss of revenue for us. So we lost.
Can you explain how?
Through the circuit clerk's office. They don't have to do bond payment anymore. So we lost quite a bit of money with all of that. But for the whole thought of the $416 billion budget, 122,000 of it is taxpayers' dollars. Okay, so that's only a small portion we're talking about, and that's been basically flat for a very long period of time, 14 years. It's been about the same rate. So we've lost money. We've had union contracts that have gone up. Our state's attorney, in order to serve the needs of the public defender, they have increased the amount of people that they've hired. They've also increased the compensation. And that, when you have a young attorney coming in who is gone to school and has debt behind them, they're going to be looking to apply for a position which pays them an equitable salary. So we don't remain just a training ground where people come in for a year and they look at DuPage, they look at Kendall, McHenry, or Cook, or Lake, and they make much more money there. So we train them for a year, spend all those resources in training, and off they go. So now we have raised their compensation. So they're both their external equity. So now people are staying with us for a longer period of time. We've done internal equity on our own side, because we had people, when I came on board, working for the circuit clerk's office, $13.50 an hour. They were collecting SNAP benefits. These are our employees, public employees, that are collecting SNAP benefits because we're not paying them what would be considered a living wage.
Well, I worked for the state attorney's office 13 years, so I certainly understand the poverty that you're talking about. But the issue really is some of these offices are fat, I believe, if you're being fair. There's layer upon layer of supervision. And I'm just saying that perhaps we need to look at some of those offices in terms of fat before we start raising taxes. Has that been done?
We just did that this year.
Okay.
We just did that this year. Not everyone participated. We asked the state's attorney and the sheriff, etc., to participate, and they said, we can't cut anything because we are serving exactly what the needs of the county deserves.
And do we scrutinize that comment?
The board had scrutinized it. And remember, I don't pass the budget. I was able to control my budget, the county board budget, and I was one of the few departments that was able to make some cuts. Not very much, about $7,000, $8,000, but it was significant because our budget is so tiny.
Isn't it fair that with the pretrial detention act, that there are fewer people in the county jail?
Not really. Data just proved that that's not the case.
Yeah, how could that not be the case?
That'll be a question.
Pre-trial.
I'm going to have to bring back that data for you.
Pre-trial. I'm just talking about the sheriff's budget. You mentioned that.
Let's go to another project that has been well publicized and 50 years in the making.
Oh, yes.
Long Meadow Parkway.
wonderful.
Just as a basis of some information, 205. I'm using statistics that I've read in the newspaper. $205 million project. You and Representative Ness brought in the last $30 million to bring in the cut down the shortfall. The county, of the $205 million, the county paid $130 million,
Correct.
$1 million from McHenry County, and then the remainder from state grants and so on. The basic question I have is this good for the county?
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely.
Tell our constituents why.
Well, look, since we're talking about taxes, all right, and money, why we brought in $30 million of state funding to help support this, which was not allocated previously. It was a special request that went through both the Senate and the House, so they had to take a special vote on it two times for two budget allocations. But now that the bond is paid down, we've actually saved the county taxpayers, whether you live in Aurora or you live up in Algonquin. Mutually, you've just saved $50 million, which is significant because there was interest on those bonds. We also don't have to pay the toll operation, which they would have taken out of that dollar, 30 cents out of that dollar for their operation.
That was the initial proposal, there would be a toll.
Correct. $1 each way.
Illinois loves their tolls.
We don't want a toll here. It was the only way they could figure out to build this bridge. So that was the idea, to be able to fund to get the bonds. Go back to the budget again. Kane County right now has no money to go out to bond. We had no reserves.
Right.
Yeah, we can't guarantee payment. So right now, this really frees up that expense that was given to the motor fuel tax that was paying for the bonds to be able to do other things.
There was some controversy with what has been called the First Amendment zone. Now this idea, I'm a lawyer, I go to the county buildings. People are sometimes in the way as it relates to entrance and exit, either handing literature or whatever the case might be. So I think the idea was to perhaps move them away from the door. And there was controversy as to that. Can you explain that for us?
That's exactly the reason why I don't believe that this has ever happened before, to my knowledge, and I've asked. So it happened for the first time during the first tax collection in June, and then again more recently. What we noticed in June, and we had documentation of all of this, is not so much at the front entrance, which there was some blocking of people, and people were very enthusiastic about handing out their flyers.
Yeah.
But in the back, where the drop box is, now that's like a cash machine, and people
right.
are, they make sure that everything's together and put it in there.
Right.
Well, as they got their window down, people were handing them this literature and
Right.
trying to engage them in conversation, which held up the line of traffic going forward.
Right.
So cars were honking horns, swerving around, and getting frustrated because they simply wanted to take care of their business, pay their taxes, and move forward. So I frankly didn't want to have anybody get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
It was about safety, and it's such a narrow passageway back there. Remember, this was a monastery that was changed
That's correct.
into a public building.
Yeah.
So it's not, we don't have a lot of public space.
That's right.
It's a very small footprint.
That begs the question of whether or not, at the end of the day, though, the policy, whatever it is, should be enforced by the county board or by the sheriff. Is this the sheriff's responsibility to see to it, to your point about safety, Pat's point about safety, that he should be responsible for making sure that there is safety as you go to the county board building for business?
Correct. But how to determine what is that safety? So we worked with the state's attorney's office, and it was recommended that we develop this area where
Right.
people could gather safely, not interfere with the flow of traffic in the back, and not interfere with foot traffic going in.
Right.
They considered that was an interference with their free speech. It had nothing to do with what the brochures were saying. That has got nothing to do with it. It really was being able to have that free flow of traffic so that people can go in, pay their taxes, do their county business,
Right.
without having to have political interference
Right.
being able to conduct that.
On another issue that I know that, well, even in my role as mayor, we've talked about this quite a bit, and I know what an advocate you are of mental health. And we had some conversation about this, the fact that there are some towns here in the county that have their own 708 boards to address mental health issues in their own particular cities. And yet I know that you're a strong advocate to make sure that the county has a strong mental health program. Is there any conversation about a mental health assessment or tax at the county level at all to you?
No, there's not. I had that initial conversation when I first got elected, and once again, we brought a lot of the representatives of the 708 boards, both municipal as well as township, and they've already set up their programs. They already feel that their programs are working effectively.
Right. Well,
So what we have done, instead of trying to break something that seems to be functioning, it has historically functioned,
Right.
is we have given, and the money is about ready to be dispersed, little over $1 million, I think it was several $1 million of ARPA funds, initially at the very beginning of the American Rescue Plan to private organizations, not-for-profits that deal with mental health. But more recently, we've just allocated $10 million of ARPA funds to the health department, who's going to be dispersing that out to similar organizations. So these organizations don't pay attention to township lines or municipal lines. They serve people in need. they support the townships, they support the municipalities, they support the county, but they see clients from whoever the needs are.
Right.
And you mentioned townships, and that gets me to my personal last question here, and that would be, as an economics student, I've always wondered about this, and I get into some arguments once in a while with friends of mine who believe that there should be a distinction between county government and township government. Sometimes I look at it through different glasses, lenses, I should say, and think that there's some overlap. And that could there be economies of scale if the two are combined? I just wonder what your thoughts were on that.
Oh, I think that depends. Once again, it's historic.
Right.
And that is going to have to be something that we'd have to get all the townships together and ask them how would they like to save resources. Certainly in the roads, I think there's some, and there is partnerships right now for that capacity. We have a lot of township roads that we help to support if we're needed for, if there's a huge snowstorm or if there's a big dust storm or whatever, we are there to support their needs. So all they have to do is call and we're there to help out. As far as paving goes, that's under their jurisdiction, but we will help to support if they need it.
And just so we're clear, in terms of mental health, there's a crisis in this county, as is in every county, really.
With fentanyl?
With mental health.
Mm-hmm.
With, you talk to the police officers, I still have a lot of friends who are police officers. They attribute most of their problems as police officers to mental health issues. So the county is forced, it's like an unfunded mandate to deal with this problem, but they don't have the capability to deal with it, and I don't know how we get beyond that.
Well, social workers would be very helpful to have full-time social workers available, trained social workers who are supported by the Sheriff's Department. I know that the city of Aurora has it. I know Elgin has it as well. St. Charles has it as well. So this is a model that's going through, but it's very important to have those people who have 24/7 capacity to be able to go out with support, with staff, security staff with them, so then if they go to a domestic violence case, they can knock on the door, they know that they will have the backup if needed.
Right. And in the long run, you're saving perhaps lives, but you're also saving resources and money.
Oh, absolutely,
along the way.
absolutely. It's interesting, I don't need to go past this, but there's something else that also is growing. We've got a huge aging population here in Kane County. Other counties have it as well, but we've got a lot of facilities that are being built, plan unit developments for seniors, which brings our aging population up even higher. And all of us, from time to time, some of us may feel mental illness, we may get dementia, we may get Alzheimer's and do some wandering or get aggressive, which is all part of Alzheimer's. And it's nothing to be ashamed of, because it is what it is. But how do we react to that? How does the public react to that? And one of the things I'd like to bring forward during my next term is to be able to really take a look at social workers with the support of working with the sheriff, so that if somebody is wandering, because we had an incident of this recently, who was actually thrown out of her apartment and wandered, where can we take her or him to a safe area where they have the social worker support, they can sit down and find out what their next steps are. Just a small place to stay so that they're not confused. Because sometimes when you have dementia, my mother suffered from that, you really have to step back and say, okay, we're going to take you from exactly at the point that you're at right now. And this is what we can do to calmly assist you to make sure that you're safe and you're secure.
Getting back to the financial aspect of running the county, there's been some talk that perhaps we want to add an administrator of some sort.
Yes.
A, why don't you talk a little bit about what the vision for that role would be, and then B, the question isn't that your job to administer the county board's job to administer the county? Aren't we adding a layer, and a costly layer, to the idea of management?
It's a difficult question.
Okay.
It's a difficult question, but I am in support of a county administrator. We are the only county, we're the 5th largest county in the
Correct.
state of Illinois.
Mhm.
We don't have one.
Right.
It has been the job and function of the county board to manage the finances and the work of the county.
Right.
Now I'm going to go back. If you are not trained as a county administrator, which means that you've got experience and training, both academic and experiential training on how to manage a large budget, $414 million right now, with knowing about the laws, the regulations, the procedures, county code. If you're not trained in that, we now have 24 devoted board members who may be an attorney who specializes in civil. We may, or real estate. We may have an environmentalist who comes in. We may have a teacher who comes in, who have ideas, concepts, beliefs, values, but they don't have the training in financial management, in county code, and administration.
Right.
They are there as a governing board, but right now they are required to be a managing board. So the longer you are there on the board, the more experience you will have. So a county administrator can come in and help guide them. Each one of the departments, or the
Committees.
the committees,
Right.
thank you,
Sure.
have a staff member who represents them. The county board as a whole does not have that.
The idea, I'm sorry, Ray. The idea is though, I vote for you, I don't vote for that county administrator. You get elected, you draw a salary, now we have this county administrator, I don't know anything about this person. I don't know anything about her background, her experience, her training, his or her, and they're drawing a significant salary as well. You've just increased the debt of government by adding this
The
position.
value of government, not the debt, the value of government. And the reason why I say the value is we talked earlier in the questions
Sure.
about how do you manage the budget? Did you take a good look at cutting this? Did you take a look at that?
Right.
The county administrator can guide the board on what really are the costs, where the holes are, where the guidance is. Because a lot of these people are working other jobs as well. They're
Right.
there for governing. They're there to develop policy.
I understand, but I didn't vote for that person, so I don't
It's
know.
a staff position.
Yeah, but I
Well,
don't
let
know
me
if
ask
they're
this
gonna be
question.
good at this position.
The question I would have would be, and I only, because I agree with you, I shouldn't be showing a bias here, but I do agree with you, but we should have a county administrator. Having said that, as a mayor of a community, I know the pittance I made as a salary because the city administrator ran the city on a daily basis. So it begs the question, if in fact a county administrator became part of the county fabric, should the chair take an appropriate decrease in pay?
So the county board during the past year has awarded themselves an increase in their compensation.
Right.
They've also increased their travel allotment, and that budget will be approved probably in November because it's on public display now. That was not awarded to me. If you take a look at what my compensation is compared to the other counties, even counties that have less population than we do, I'm equitable because it has not been raised again in, I'm guessing now, over 10 years.
Yeah.
So it's been flat. The job that I have is both policy, it's working with federal, it's working with state, it's working with our mayors, it's working with our not-for-profit, it's working with our business leaders. That's my job. That is my job.
Right.
That job is very important because I bring opportunity and to the county.
Right. So if I may, I think you're saying that a county administrator might end up saving the taxpayers' money through the management style and the idea of looking through various budgets and perhaps
Guiding the policy.
Guiding those,
Guiding
right.
the policy of the
Right.
board.
and then
And it's guiding, not managing, it's guiding it.
right. And then you're saying that I should, no offense to you, of course, but I'm just saying I should keep the same salary. The administrator should be paid the same because we're all working toward that same goal of better management, right?
The county administrator would be paid more than the
Sure.
county board chair.
Right.
A last question that I'm going to ask you to direct to your constituents. Why don't you make any final comments that you'd like to make in closing as you prepare to run for re-election?
We have made significant progress the last 3.5 years with the county. Not only, we mentioned Long Meadow Parkway, we opened up in 3 weeks' time, and come back from just a week of bereavement from the surprising death of my husband, opening up a mass vac center where we served 200,000 vaccinations. We lost 1,300 people here in Kane County, but let's just say we saved 200,000 people in Kane and in northern Illinois. Following on to that, the Fox River became nationally recognized and is the 9th nationally recognized Fox River Trail, or river trail in the United States, which is, oh my gosh, we could not be prouder of that. That is so wonderful. The other big accomplishments, and there were others as well, but we're just about ready to launch for the very first time for Kane County an economic development organization, which is going to work and overview the economic development of the entire county, working with a variety of chambers and our municipalities and our village about land use, about development of businesses, the type of businesses that we support here, along with protecting our farmers who bring $1.3 billion worth of industry here into Kane County. So these are the things we're starting to work on, as well as our climate action plan. There's a variety of different opportunities that are going to be presented, and I am anxious to roll up my sleeves, keep them rolled up, and to keep on moving forward.
Thank you very much. You want to give that website one more time so people can find more information?
Sure. It's Corinne Pierog at electCorinnePierog.com.
We thank you very much for your time and for coming to visit with us. We appreciate that. We wish you the very best of luck in November. And with that, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take a small break and we'll be right back.
All right, we're back and we're joined by Lance Bell, a Republican candidate for the office of Chairman of the Kane County Board. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Lance.
Glad to be here. Yeah.
And the same rules apply. We've given him the questions in advance, just as we did with the
Chairman.
incumbent. And so we might ask some follow-ups on those questions, but you've had those questions, and I'm certain you've had an opportunity to prepare. I think we wanted to talk a little bit, especially for the folks out there who don't know Lance Bell from, Save the Bell. Is that a TV show? Well, the people that don't know you, I'm going to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to us.
No, I appreciate that. I think the best way to describe from an occupation standpoint is to take a day in the life. So I wake up every morning at 4:45 and I'm in my first meeting at 5 a.m. every day. And that's I am the CEO and the Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer for a software company that my wife and I and our employees, it's an ESOP company that we all own together.
Nice.
And we've been doing that for June will be our 15th year, so almost 14 and a half years into it. And it's a blessing. I grew up in the food industry. I had a DNA flaw. I wanted to get into restaurants for some reason.
Sure.
Family wasn't involved, and I did. I got a degree in hotel and restaurant management from the University of Missouri. I worked for some phenomenal companies, Ruby Tuesdays, Outback Steakhouse. In fact, Outback Steakhouse is how I got here to Chicago in 1992. I moved into Palatine the week of the Brown Chicken Massacre, if you remember that. Yeah.
Yes.
I was 2 blocks down the street.
Former prosecutor here.
Okay, there.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
Yeah, that was, oh, it was incredible. And we were opening the Outback Steakhouse unit number 1 in Buffalo Grove at that time.
Wow.
And so partly that, I was recruited by a couple of guys to open a restaurant and brewery in Lincolnshire, which we did. We raised $5 million and opened a beautiful place called Flatlighters Restaurant and Brewery. I got an opportunity to go out in Spokane, Washington and open a larger one. And about that time I got into food tech.
Okay.
So I was putting together everything, the accounting and the inventory, everything required to get a profit and loss statement. And I just got pulled into that part. So today we work with restaurants, senior living communities, and hospitals all over the United States and Canada. And I'm right in the middle. So I get to go in, like last week I was in Florida, working with one of our partners. So I'm in the kitchen, I'm in the dining room, working with the residents, I'm doing everything. And then I go back and I have 35 software engineers in 6 teams, and I work with them to create different solutions.
While you were in Spokane, did you ever get go down the pike a little bit to the Palouse? A little bit in southern Washington State.
Did not.
You didn't?
Did
Okay.
not. We went east and west.
All right.
Mount Spokane, all the way to Priest Lake, Idaho.
Okay.
And then we went all the way, did all the Seattle stuff, went all the way down to Bayside, Oregon.
All right. Very nice.
Got
Do
quite
you
a bit
have
of
any
it.
connection with Kane County in the business? Is it local is what I'm trying
Well,
to
I've been back here for 15 years.
Right.
And so left in 97, came back in 2009. And we really have firm roots here in the last 15 years.
But the business itself, is that located in Kane?
Yeah, the office is Oak Brook Terrace. We
Okay.
since the beginning, since the inception, it's been a 100% virtual company. So we have employees across the globe.
Okay.
Everybody works out of their homes.
Well, for people who wanted a little more information about yourself and any information about your candidacy, you have a website, www.bellforkane.com. Is that correct, sir?
That is correct.
And so anybody who's interested in more information about his biography, his past employment or education can find that there.
I'm going to ask the question about leadership. And I'm going to ask the question, well, in 2 parts. One, why are you seeking this office specifically? Why are you seeking this office? And as a follow-up to that, I'm going to ask you, what leadership skills do you bring to the table? You've already talked about a variety of leadership skills in your company. What specific leadership skills do you think you bring that are way above the curve in terms of all leadership skills?
I'd say natural born. Leadership is something that everybody has. It's just whether they deploy it or not. When you have a concept like leadership or trust or love, I think it's important to take the word and break it down into a definition. So for me, leadership is one's ability to use their intellect and influence in order to guide people to better outcomes. That's what I see as the definition, the concept. And then when you get into that, the first step in being a good leader is the ability to define reality. And so that's where I believe I excel. I'm a leader today in a number of different areas. The one that's most important to me is in my marriage. We've been married for 34 years. My wife and I, and in fact, the first 6 years of our marriage were horrendous. I was a horrible husband. And it was about 1997 when God got a hold of me, and I just learned this idea. I'm bad at doing this. I need to get good at doing this. Mm-hmm. And the first thing my wife and I did is we started teaching a Sunday school class for young married couples. And so by being a teacher, I was a better student. I was forced to really learn and get into it. So I've been teaching Bible studies since that time, so 27, 28 years now. And every study you can imagine of being a husband and being a father, we've done. And so my wife and I really honed the skill of leadership in a marriage, and that parlayed into children. So we had 2 children of our own, 2 girls, and they went to St. Charles North. And about 14 years ago, we had a calling to become foster parents. So we decided we'll do the DCFS training. We did it. We got our first child, and we actually, long story short, we got placed with an agency that specializes in female teenagers with special needs. And so one of the young ladies that was brought to us was represented as being the hardest case in the entire state of Illinois. When she needed to be hospitalized, they had to send her to Missouri. No hospital here would take her. And we got her out of that cycle. We got her out of the hospitalizations. And today she gave us our second grandchild.
Wow.
She lives in Joliet.
Congratulations.
She's engaged to be married. And so we've been able to pour into young ladies through leadership development as parents. And then I started my first company when I was 12. It was a landscaping company. And I started hiring my friends, and we were out doing summer gigs, and it just grew and grew. And then I sold it at 16. I started a marketing firm. We were doing door hangers. So I was 16 in a suit running around talking to St. Louis business owners selling advertising space.
Wow.
And so it's just been a gift to be out there. I think a lot of it, when you look at like Myers-Briggs or Platinum Rule, there's a lot of different attributes: introvert, extrovert, sensing, judging. One of them is direct and indirect. And as an individual, I tend to be highly direct. I see a problem, I work with people, I solve a problem, we move on.
And the reason you're running for this specific position?
I was recruited. There was never a day in my life where I woke up and said, boy, I want to be the chair of Kane County. And precinct committeeman from my neighborhood, St. Charles 29. And during that training session, I was recruited by Andro Lalario, who I worked with. We did a couple of rallies together. I came alongside and did the administrative.
Just for the people, he is.
He is the head of the political Kane County GOP.
Okay.
Yeah, he's the chairman of the counties on that side of it.
Okay.
So Andro, as a friend, challenged me to take up the mantle, and here I am.
Let's see.
And one more question I have before I know you're going to get into the
Sure.
taxes and so on and so forth. Pat and I always thought this was a good question to ask any candidate, and we've been doing this now for a while. And so you're going to get into a campaign, and the campaign's going to sometimes get sticky, and you make some disagreements and so on. But why don't, if you can, why don't you tell us something about your opponent that you like?
Well, I did some soul searching to get you that answer. And she brought in the money so that the parkway that just recently opened was a non-toll parkway, where originally it was going to be a toll parkway. I'm adamantly against all tollways everywhere. So the fact that she did that, it earns kudos.
Very nice, very nice. Pat?
Well, I take it as a Republican generally, you have certain positions about government generally that might relate to the county board. Could you tell the folks a little bit about your general opinions of the board, the management of the board as you know it, and how it operates today? Sure.
I think what we've seen, Corinne gets credit for being the first Democrat ever to be elected to that position. What we've seen is a 4-year drumbeat of trying to raise taxes, some way, shape, or form. In fact, just last week, if I'm going to keep giving her credit, her and the Democrats on the board passed what will be a referendum. Today, the county sales tax is 0%. They've passed a 0.75%, which is estimated to bring in $51 million a year in revenue.
And just so we're clear, they passed the idea of a referendum, not the actual tax.
Actually, the way this works is the referendum that they passed will be on the consolidated election. It'll be one of the vote yes, vote no for that in April.
Right.
Yeah.
So that tax has not been enacted.
By state law, they can't pass a sales tax like that. They can only put it on the ballot for the people to decide.
Right. Now, where do you stand on the tax itself?
Well, when you look at two sources, the Tax Institute, and you look at NerdWallet, which is an unusual name for a company that does a great job putting together consumer tax information all the way down to the county line. In 2020, we were the 35th highest taxed county in the United States of America. That's a little over 3,000 counties. Today, we're ranked 9th. We've dropped down that far. So for the folks living in Kane County, I believe the vast majority would agree the tax burden is too high today. Now, there's the county board's piece, which is actually a small piece of everybody's bill. It's the school districts that are taking the lion's share, about 2/3 of that bill. So it's multiple entities that are hitting the individual citizens of Kane County to make the overall burden high.
Right. Well, it's my understanding we have a budget shortfall currently of $28 million. This tax, they say, would generate $50 million if approved. What they don't seem to say is that they've looked at all of the departments and looked at cutting before they looked at raising taxes. Is that something that you would sponsor or advocate? Is that looking at each county department and looking at how much fat they have, how many employees they have, that kind of a thing? Or is that something that's left to the devices of the people voting for the referendum?
Over the last 4 years, the employee expense, direct salary and then benefits, has gone up 77%. The population of Kane County has not gone up 77%. So there's been a hiring spree. There's been some raises that I would argue were good raises to put, but we're talking 4 or 5%, not anything that justifies 77% increases.
Now, we have the advantage of having talked to her before you, and what if she says, well, we're playing catch up? It's been under Republican leadership, the county board has failed to bring the county within the 21st century in terms of the state's attorney's office, the public defender's office raises salaries and facilities. What do you say to that?
There are 2,998 counties who deliver the similar services, if not the same, at a lower cost per person.
Okay. So it's fair to conclude you're against the sales.
Absolutely against.
Okay.
In fact, I'm excited. There's been a lot of people, 15, 16 months, of people showing up at county board meetings voicing their opposition to all of her tax raising strategies. She tried to double the sales tax. Now, granted, she's got 16 Democrats on the board to 8 Republicans.
Right.
She has a traditional Illinois supermajority. She put forth the doubling of the county sales tax, and it was rejected by the board. She put together a multi-year 5% property tax increase. It was rejected by the board. So in this last year, this is the first thing she's gotten through is this referendum. And there's 2 schools of thought. One is that the folks that typically vote in consolidated are those who have an interest to vote. The numbers are very low. Usually it's 8% of voters come out. And there's a belief that they can get it through and then be able to blame the citizens for having said yes. I like to look at it the other way. This is an awesome opportunity for those who love Kane County to come out and vote no in April of next year.
All right, let's assume that we voted no. Let's assume we don't have a sales tax. How are you managing this $28 million shortfall?
The 88% increase in total expenses has to be reversed. So we need to get every one of the 7 departments has to come together. The first thing for me is looking at what's happened over the last 4 years. How has it exploded? And it is a combination of increased head count. When you listen to like a finance committee, they almost sound like they're talking about austerity. Somebody's left, the position's still open. The head count has grown significantly. Right. Then you have, the last time I looked at this stat was about a year ago, but the average Kane County employee, this is the public stat, was making about $90,000 a year. Kane County employee. The median income for somebody earning income in Kane County was $60,000. So I'm going to refresh that stat, but if it's about a 50% delta, public service versus private service, it's another opportunity.
Does that include the benefits as well and the pension and things of that nature?
I'm sure it's still a compensation number.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because you get 401k, and I'm not sure if that's included, that offsets the pension number.
Yeah, we have IMRF, I think, county employees.
Yeah.
So you're going to go through all the departments. You recommend a hiring freeze? Is that something that you would recommend?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you're going to go through department by department and say, too fat here.
Yeah, it's not just that. I'm a technologist, and one of the things I love is artificial intelligence. I use it every single day in my life, and when I teach classes here locally, just small community group classes, and when I work with most folks are not engaged in artificial intelligence today. I use it in business. I use it to help businesses better run their businesses. I believe, I have a notion that most of the county's technology isn't up to date as far as being rooted in that. And so I want to bring in technology solutions that help everything be more productive and run more efficiently.
With fewer employees and fewer costs.
There's an
less costs.
Yeah, there's an offset. This comes back to tax burden.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring up a question that we have toward the end, but I think it's appropriate to
Okay.
sneak it in here now because of what Mr. Bell has said, and that is the idea of a county administrator. So my first question on the gate is, given the fact that every Collier County has one except for Kane County, and I'm somewhat familiar with that as a former mayor who made a pittance as mayor, but had a full-time professional running the city of St. Charles on a daily basis. First question is, do you support a full-time county administrator?
Initially, no, and it would actually take something to get me to change my notion on this. I don't live life with things that are hard set and hard set forever. When I looked at the salaries of the other counties and their administrators, it's right at $250,000, $250,000
Right.
in benefits.
Well,
Then they get a staff.
we brought this up in the previous interview, and I guess I'll ask the second part of the question. If we brought a professional, and again, I'm not suggesting that you in your background here could not come in and run the county. I believe, however, that people who are elected, Pat, we talked about this before, people are elected, they're elected from a variety of different employment streams, and you get a trained professional in there who would make maybe over $200,000. But my position would be that the corollary offset would be the chairman's salary drops significantly to a pittance, because all you have to do really is run the county board.
Yeah.
Like I had to run the St. Charles City Council. So
Ribbons, shovels.
what would be your response to that?
I've been blessed to have been able to spend a lot of time with Chris Lawson, the former chairman of the
Right.
board. And Chris has poured into me. I've sucked from him knowledge and wisdom. And back when he was the county board chairman, he had a meeting every Monday. He brought all the department heads in. He spent 2 hours with them. They talked about vision and alignment, what was working, what was not working. And he had that position as the overseer of all of the operations of the board. He did that in addition to running the board. So initially, if elected, that's what I'll do.
Right.
I need to get into the mix, because here's the offset. For everything for me, it's return on investment. If we hired somebody, and let's say all in, they're $500,000 a year, can they save the county through their experience and their knowledge to $5 million a year? If we find the right person, the answer is yes. I've got no problems. I'm not in this this is a salary decrease for me for the time that I would spend in this, and I'm not in this for me. I've already declared, if elected once,
Right.
I'll do the term. If elected twice, I'm finding my replacement and I'm out. I believe strongly in term limits. So I've committed to no more than 2 terms, and I think it would be fantastic if we could find an administrator who could run the county better than myself and reduce costs.
The difference, you would agree, though, is I vote for you. I'm a Lance Bell guy. He's my guy. I love his background, experience, everything else. I didn't vote for the county administrator that
Correct.
we're hiring. And I don't necessarily like what they're doing. I don't like them. I don't like their background or experience. You see that as a problem as it relates to the electorate? I mean, you go out, you run, you say you're qualified for the job, but basically you're admitting you're not by hiring this county administrator. At least you're not qualified to the point of he or she can do things better, more efficiently than I can.
The
necessarily.
current chairwoman has not done what Chris Lawson has done. There are very few meetings. In fact, I've been told there hasn't been a single meeting with her and all 7 of the department heads outside of the county board. So in my opinion, she's abdicated that role. Now that's fine. Each of the 7 departments reports to the subcommittee.
Right.
And they have their oversight and things get done at that level. But all she's doing at that point is just running the meetings and controlling the agenda. Recently, there were compensation adjustments that were made at the county level. And everybody got a raise except for her,
Right.
which again, it's her Democrats that control the board.
Right.
That makes a statement. I'm not passing judgment on it. It makes a statement. In fact, one of the Democrats said that her salary should be reduced down to $70,000 because of the possibility of an administrator coming on.
I see.
So,
I see.
yeah, those are the facts.
I think he made his position clear as far as the administrator is concerned. Speaking though of Mr. Lawson, It was, well, this has been something coming on for 50 years, but certainly made a lot of publicity during his tenure. That's Long Meadow Parkway. And in fact, as I recall correctly, he was the one who suggested a toll, but then that's been taken away. But here's my question, very simply put. $200 million project, $130 million of it absorbed by the county. I think the chairman and Representative Ness went in and able to get about $30 million from state grants and so on and so forth. McHenry County's put $1 million in. As you said earlier, there's no toll. The question I have is simple. After 50 years of doing it, is it worth it? Is the Long Meadow Parkway worth the money expenditure for the county?
Again, I'm a technologist, and I'm always looking 5 to 10 years down the road. And I yearn for the day when I need to ride somewhere, I get on my phone, I call an app, and a car shows up without a person in it, and I get taken anywhere I want to get taken. Mm-hmm. And in fact, there's a gentleman who put together a book called The Truth About Your Future, Rick Edelman, local finance guy. And this book is on YouTube. He actually narrates it. One of these 20 chapters is on transportation. And he dreams forward what happens when. It's going to happen. We have self-driving cars. I was in Phoenix a month and a half ago. Waymos were all over the place. Self-driving cars taking people around Phoenix. And so when that day comes here, what happens? Well, we don't need our driveways anymore. We get our garages back. We can remodel the garages and anything you want it to do. For me personally, I get to get in a vehicle and continue to work and be productive and not worry about me getting into an accident. When you're on the road today and you're looking around, everybody's on their phones. And what happens at a stoplight? There's half the cars don't go when the light turns green because they're on their phones. Honking has almost become an automatic thing today. So I look forward to the day where we're past all of that, and that'll be one of the benefits you get out of that. So, that long answer to, will the parkway be worth it 5 to 10 years from now? Absolutely not. All the money will have been wasted. But how could they have foreseen that 50 years ago?
Let's talk a little bit about the idea that there's this $28 million shortfall and the county board voted themselves raises. Does that cause you pause? Is that something that bothers you as a candidate?
Well, first of all, when I asked Chris, how long should a county meeting go? And he said, if effective and efficient meetings should run 60 to 90 minutes tops. When you go to the YouTube channel and you look at the meetings that are recorded there, you see 4-hour meetings, 5-hour meetings. Some of them are 7 hours long. And there's complaints about people falling asleep in these meetings. I don't blame the people that fall asleep in the meetings. You stick me in a chair and I'm stuck there for 7 hours.
So are you suggesting that because the meetings are not efficient, they deserve a raise?
For the county board members, yes. It's a part-time job that through inefficiencies has forced them into full-time hours. You ask any of them how many hours they work, and most of them will declare 30 or more hours, some more than 40. You got the subcommittee meetings, they might do something with the forest preserve, and they were making $25,000 a year. Yeah. So I had no issue with their $5,000
Here's the
raise.
deal, though. They signed up for that $25,000 a year. That's what they ran for.
Sure. And
the idea that they're getting raises in this economy within the board is, I think the average person's going to ask questions about that. Let's move on. You've talked about planning and things of that nature. Apparently, there has not been a long-range facilities plan or a strategic plan in decades, basically because they say that they can't afford it, maybe the raises, but they say they can't afford these plans. Where do you stand in terms of the necessity of these plans, strategic or facility plans? Is that something that you advocate for, or is it you go on a listening tour? How is it that you find out this stuff?
I believe in the environment that we live in, that long-range planning is no longer 25 or 50 years. Mm-hmm. I believe it's back into the 5, 10, and 15-year range. I would advocate for county employees, those who jobs allow it and those who want to be able to work part-time or full-time from their homes. It's been a complete blessing for my wife and I to both work out of our home for the last 15 years. and not have to commute to an office.
So you're already saving the county money by facility expansion because you're saying basically you can work from home.
Absolutely. It's great for quality of life. It saves money on wear and tear on cars and wardrobe, and it would help all the employees.
And the traffic.
Less of a need for the
Now
parkway.
let's talk a little bit. You told us that you're running for this job, not because necessarily you have a passion for it, but that you were recruited. Am I correct in that?
Absolutely correct.
But besides that, I'm imagining that you have some passion for it and you have some ideas. Now, you've talked about efficiency, you've talked about technology. Do you have any ideas, pet projects that you'd like to bring forward with the county board?
Revamping expenses and operations is the passion.
Okay, budgetary.
I love solving problems, and that's the biggest problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you've mentioned Chris Lawson a few times. I hesitate to say this out loud, but he not necessarily favored by a variety of people within the county, and his management style was kind of criticized. You're not suggesting you're going to replicate his management style. You might take some ideas from him. Is that what you're saying, basically?
I've had some conversations with Democrats one-on-one through this process, which has just been fantastic. And one of the board members said with Chris, he was direct and you always knew where he was at, whether you liked it or not.
True.
And for, if you would call that a criticism or a judgment, I would be proud if a Democrat said that of me one day. So at the highest level, yes,
Right.
but I've never sat in a meeting with Chris. I can't tell you anything more from an intimacy standpoint.
Right.
So as never had reported to him, I can't state.
You're suggesting you'll be a little flexible.
Yeah, here's the thing. I love the Socratic method, and I believe in, especially when you're working, like the most important job of the chairperson is selecting the people who lead the committees.
Sure.
It's just as important as the items that go onto the agenda.
Sure.
And so opening this up, assume I'm elected and I'm in that position where I'm having to pick these people out. I want to pick the most qualified people regardless of the letter that's after their name. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not going to come in and just make a sweeping change and put a Republican in every spot. There are some good Democrats on the board. I've met them. And so I'm going to leave it there instead of going any deeper. But working through the committees is what's most important. I love to ask questions to help other people get to the answers. Okay. And so as I analyze the situation, I'll look and see what the opportunities are. I'll ask about those opportunities. It's not consensus. I don't need consensus in order to get something going. Right. I just find the best way to lead people is to have them come up with the ideas and then support them in executing those ideas.
Sure. Okay. Right.
We had a flap recently that made a lot of publicity in the papers, and I'd like to have your take on the whole thing, and that's this First Amendment zone. I've read it, just like Pat read it, like many citizens read it, and probably a lot of people have different views. I think most people know what happened. So I have a couple different angles to go at on that. First of all, as far as just safety around a public building is concerned, who should be responsible for that? The county board? The sheriff?
On the county's property would be the sheriff.
The sheriff.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the event that there are issues associated with entrance, exit of a county building, or a drive up, let's say, for tax or whatever the case may be, can I assume that you would support the idea that there should be safety measures to make sure that people can do their business with the county without interference?
I would take it down another step. I would say probably the standard would be just disturbing the peace. And that's subjective, so you have to be careful there. Right. The folks, and there's in Kane County, there's grassroots folks, and then there's establishment folks. The folks that have been there at the front door are grassroots folks. They're your neighbors. They're good intentioned people. They're handing out a flyer she hates. I didn't see the last one. Nobody comes to me and says, do you approve this? I don't see any of it. And I'm fine with that because I'm busy with other things. I wasn't at the front door. I have no idea. I know from the county board meeting and the videos and the pictures, nobody was in somebody else's face. There wasn't a disturbing of the peace. When that policy was put into place and some woman came out representing security in some way, shape, or fashion, and she asked the person to move, they moved. I don't think I would have done that if somebody had asked. I wouldn't have been rude about it, but it was about 50 feet away, and it was over in the direct sunlight. I listened to this county board meeting online. What Corinne did that she shouldn't have done, one is she put together this policy outside of the board. She had the sign made, she didn't talk to any board members, and then when she worked with, it was a civil attorney in Jamie Mosier's office,
Right.
she didn't go to Jamie, she went around Jamie. So she went around the board, she went around Jamie, she got her sign made, she put her sign up, she told somebody in staff to tell the people to go away, and the whole thing was done in the wrong
I
manner.
guess the broad, and I'm not going to get involved in whether or not, in asking whether there anybody out there that were nuisances or not nuisances, whether they were used proper decorum or not. The question I would basically have is, should an individual or individuals who have county business be able to go in and out of county buildings and or drive up for the purpose of, say, depositing a tax, payment of taxes and so on, without interference?
Sure.
Okay, that's basically.
Completely.
So I think that so we're probably on the same page. We clearly agree upon the right of free speech within some limitation based upon safety issues and an ability to walk and do business in a particular building.
Correct. My understanding is these folks were off the sidewalk. There's like a little area where there's wood chips. There might have been one person in a picture that was on the other side of the sidewalk. I would not want somebody standing in front of me, forcing me to stop and, change. I'm going in to pay a tax bill. Why are you in front of me? That's an invasion of
That's
personal
fair.
I
space.
have personally experienced problems getting in and getting out with people milling about with their various cause.
True.
And I'm in favor of free speech and the First Amendment, but your cause is interrupting my ability to get in and out. And the courthouse has people that have religious materials for people as they're entering the courthouse, but they're off the entranceway. They're not in an assigned area, but they're just off, and that's the way it should be.
I want to get into another area real quickly, and that's mental health, only because, and as Pat articulated in our first interview, and I agree with him 100%, we really have a mental health crisis in this country. You talked about some of that even early on in your conversation, just about your background and so on and so forth with respect to the issues associated with, foster children and so forth. My question is simple. The various cities here in the county do have 708 boards that support mental health within their own particular municipal boundaries. Should the county have some sort of program, this kind of an umbrella program that would take us through the whole county? And if that's the case, then there probably would be some duplicity with respect to double taxation and so forth. I just wonder what your opinion is on
Sure.
that.
Our family has been customers, of the Ecker Center. Through our church, we've supported
Yes.
tri-services.
And our 708 board in St. Charles supports the Ecker Center.
Absolutely. And I'm a huge proponent of supporting all nonprofits that are doing solid work. The Lazarus Center is another one.
Very good.
Fox Valley Christian Action, we've been supporting them for 15 years. I've actually been there doing leadership classes and training to the kids that go there in the summertime at the camp. And so I'm all in about nonprofits. And so if it's the county working with other entities to get grants, to bring in funding, to put it at these nonprofits that are doing a great job, I'm all in.
But you wouldn't be I don't pick up the fact that you would want to see a county assess a county mental health tax.
Absolutely not.
All right.
Absolutely not.
And then my last question of the day centers around something that I listened to you carefully, and I thought I picked up some ideas about cutting costs and so on. So I'll ask the question this way. On our tax bill, we have county, we have township, not to mention city, not to mention, as you said, the big kahuna on this thing, the school district.
Yes.
I'm biting the hand that once fed me. Having said that, do you believe that there's any duplicity in services and resources with a county government and a township government both in place? Can we get economies of scale by perhaps compressing the two?
That's a state issue. And so to be a proponent for or against in this position doesn't make a lot of sense.
Do you think there is duplicity?
Well, in services provided, yes, not a lot, but I've reached out and we had a luncheon. We invited village presidents and township supervisors. We had over 20 people show up, and I got the opportunity to really hear some great folks share. And what I was told today is there's no communication between the county and any of the townships. It's everybody's on their own. So I've already committed to those supervisors that I will have meetings with them and so see what we can do to work together on road maintenance projects. One of the ones that I was told by a supervisor is hook and ladder trucks. Shared fire services. Apparently here in the county, we've got more than one location where we got two stations very close to each other that have these very expensive hook and ladder trucks in them. Right. And that's, two different fire districts. Yeah, but the residents are not being served well from a financial standpoint.
And to bring it to the school level, and there's not an issue here with you, but I've always wondered why we have these 2 or 3 different school districts within a municipality. It doesn't happen here in the valley. Well, we've got that all over the state. Yeah. Well, there's one city that has 7 different school districts. Well, I mean, they have to pay a superintendent, a principal for. It boggles my mind as opposed to economies of scale through a unit district, K-12, under one school board, under one superintendent, etc. So I'm trying to see if that applies here with county government, township government, city government, and whether there are economies of scale. That was the purpose of my question.
One of the things about artificial intelligence, it's a misnomer, a prejudice against it, is that people believe it makes people dumber. The reality is people that use AI get smarter. And of all the areas that are being disrupted by this technology, education is front and center. The Khan Academy, the nonprofit, was one of the first ones to partner with OpenAI, and they put together an artificial tutor. It's right there on the screen. It's your own personal assistant that will not give you the answer to any problem that you get wrong. That tutor will help you step by step solve the problem without, again, providing the answer. And so school, think about this. I understand our current school system goes back to the Persians. Everything's on a bell, everything's set by time. It's like we're trying to manufacture. I'm sorry, I'm killing.
No. You're, to some extent, you're exactly correct about the kids walking around under a schedule as opposed to a college situation. Well, you don't have that.
Let's wrap this up. 2 things. One, you just advocated for less government, and now you're advocating for more meetings. So that's a little. But secondly, though, we want to give you an opportunity to talk to the camera, talk to the voters a little bit about your philosophies, the reason you're running, and whatever else you want to say.
I appreciate the time today. I've enjoyed the conversation. This is really simple, and in fact, I think you take this back to Ronald Reagan's famous question, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago when he was going against Jimmy Carter? Same question for you in Kane County. Are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? It's a very tumultuous last 4 years, especially kicking off with the COVID situation. But you have to look at people who took advantage of that situation. You have to look at where we're currently at the Kane County level, and I'd argue at the state level as well. And you need to vote according to that question. Are you better off or are you not? Do you believe that government should be ran or managed or led effectively and efficiently? Or is it okay for the constant drumbeat of tax increases to take place? If you're for tax increases, vote for my opposition. If you want to see some fiscal and financial restraints, if you want to see some leadership put in place, I would be your candidate. I appreciate your support and your vote on November 5th, preferably earlier.
All right, we want to thank Mr. Lance Bell for coming here today and talking about his candidacy for chairman of the Kane County Board. Thank you very much for coming.
Appreciate the conversation. Thank you.
A commercial break, and when we come back, Pat and I'll have some closing comments. You stay tuned.
Hello, friends. This is Ray Rogina. Are you looking for the place to be? Voted best live music and entertainment venue by the Daily Herald in 2023? That would be Old Republic in Elgin, an indoor-outdoor hub with classic American eats, beer, and cocktails, plus the best sports bar, burgers, wings, and ribs. Best value? Old Republic. Another good place to be.
Well, we are back, Pat.
Yes.
We are back, and we had our first two candidates for office as part of this forums we're having on county government and county government candidates for a variety of different positions.
Some overlap from this race to the others, perhaps.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Your thoughts, just in general. I think there's certainly differences between the two candidates.
Very much so, very clear differences. Clearly, we have issues here. We have money issues. We have use of money issues. We have efficiency issues for the voters to contemplate.
We have two candidates. One that the educational trail seemed to be moving toward private enterprise, and we have the other candidate who I can identify with that came from an education background, and taught school as I did, and I do believe, by the way, on that issue about the county administrator, I believe somebody of any occupation should be able to run for mayor or county board chair. And once they attain that position, they should facilitate and lead the governing body that oversees county board, city council, etc. And then let an administrator operate. So that's my pure belief. The current chair is supportive of that. The challenger here said he wants to be in for a while and see what happened before he decides.
Well, I agree with that as it relates to any office, that you want to listen, observe, see what's going on before you make any changes. But again, if the county board position is only ceremonial, we're
a
cutting.
little bit more than
Let
ceremonial.
me finish. Cutting ribbons, digging, foundations. Then why don't we just have the qualified county administrators run for county board, as opposed to the figureheads? Because we're skipping a step here.
Well, wait. Let me comment on that. I've known a few city administrators.
Sure.
They're not interested in running a campaign.
Well,
they want to be appointed by the person who was elected to be the CEO of the city
Is
or
it
county,
not
as opposed to the CAO.
Is it not a fraud upon the people, though, to say,
not
here
that-
I am, I'm running for office. Oh, by the way, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to appoint my good friend Timmy.
Well, that's
who's
an
gonna be the
important
administrator.
point. That is an important point. But it is the responsibility of the county board chair or any given mayor to appoint that person. It's a very important responsibility to do such. I don't deny that for a minute. But Pat,
And as it relates to the county, there's a lot of money involved here that apparently they don't have.
well, look, on that money issue, I'm going to be very clear, and I tried to casually mention it. That is that to me, the county board chair position, if you want to use the word ceremonial or whatever you want to use, should be a token salary.
Right.
And the county administrator, or in the case of a city, the city administrator,
Right.
should be the one who's doing the work on a regular
Right.
basis.
So we're not
So
paying.
I've made that very clear, and I'm not sure that either candidate was very clear on that point.
Right. And I agree with you 100%. Instead of paying $100,000 for a ceremonial position, we're paying $350,000.
Well, it depends upon
benefits.
it depends upon how it shakes out. The flap on the First Amendment. Hey, listen. At the end of the day, I think they both believe that people should be able to do their business in the county without interference.
That's right.
And I also believe it's the sheriff's responsibility to go in there if there's a problem.
That's
the
right.
county board chair or anybody there, it should be administrator or a department head, should pick up the phone and call the sheriff and say, get over here.
Right.
We got somebody that's creating a nuisance, a quasi-nuisance, a disturbing the peace situation.
Your engagement with the public, your First Amendment rights are not any stronger or more valid the closer you are to the door, right? So,
One seemed to be if I may, I might walk carefully on this, but one seemed to be a little bit more of a disciple of the previous chair, and the other one obviously distanced herself from the previous chair.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, you're talking about a situation where what's your management style? And, there are people out there that didn't care for Mr. Lawson's style. So if he's going to replicate that style, there might be controversy.
One last observation, and by the way, I believe Kane County is purple. It's not blue, it's not red. It's been red, sea of red. It's been the Red Sea for decades. And then it started to turn. And now I think it's purple, although, as you indicated, many county elected positions are Democrat. But it seems to me the Republicans here in the county taken notice and want to do something about that. That's clear from the dialogue that took place here. And the Democrats seem to want to move ahead and present their plan for making it continue to make it, in their eyes, an efficient operating county. The county is a good county. I don't think there's any debate about that.
It's a
There's
wonderful county.
lot of assets that we have here, and it's a matter of whether we allocate resources carefully, but and productively. Anyway, looking forward to next week. We have the state's attorney candidates coming in, and that should be very interesting, only because that's your old office.
I've worked with both of them, so it'll be interesting. We'll have some disclosures, as always. But it's interesting. It's an interesting election. Anytime you have first term incumbent running against a challenger that's also experienced within the office, that's interesting, Rex.
And then next week also we have, I'm looking forward to this only because, the judiciary is kind of a mystique.
Right.
It's an area of government, the judiciary branch, where we don't know a lot that goes on behind, the trappings and the doings of county board, city councils, etc. It's all in the newspaper.
Right.
But other than a judge's decisions, we don't know much about the judiciary. That's kind of a clandestine operation.
Yeah, there are a lot of.
I don't say that negatively. I'm just saying it.
No, and it has to be, I think, to a certain extent. We're not going to talk about a judge's predilections about X or their positions about Y, but we're going to talk about them and let them introduce themselves to the electorate. I get calls all the time, Pat. Who should I vote for judge? As they're sitting there filling out their ballot. And, I have opinions about judges, obviously, but, let the people make their own choices based upon our questions.
And we're doing this, friends, because, as Pat indicated earlier, early voting starts actually at the end of next week. And so it's incumbent upon you to start to gather the facts about all the different candidates and make some learned decisions about such, so that, and we're just a couple of guys here. Well, these two guys are just trying to give you some more information to work with, and that's part of our charge. So I look forward to that.
Right.
So we want to thank both Madam Chairman herself, Corinne Pierog, and her challenger, Republican Lance Bell, for joining us today and engaging in the lively art of conversation.
Right.
So for our trusty and crack producer, and by the way, did you notice he's got the same shirt, not the same exact, same color shirt as Kevin Ketchum wears.
I see, yes.
He's got the Kevin Ketchum look.
They have their own swag over there.
Yeah.
Let's also give him credit for the technology problem we had, that he was able to.
By the way, speaking of swag, and before, if I may,
you could use mine, the little
I want to
one,
hold this up for
the child small.
I want to hold this up so that everybody knows that Paul's been getting a little testy about us asking for swag, and he actually put something on the screen one day saying, "There they go again, asking for swag." But the fact of the matter is, he delivered. And we've got this nice hoodie,
Oh.
just a couple of guys sweatshirt, and we want to publicly thank Paul for providing
And
that.
we want to talk to the viewers. If they want their own hoodie, it's only $450.
Exactly right. Paul can get you. Paul can get you that, but we're not going to divulge any information.
That's
You have to send us a private note on that.
Private DM.
So again, for our crack producer Paul Stokel, right there at the helm, keeping track of everything and not missing a beat.
Not missing a beat.
While Kevin is in absentia. And for my trusty, still mysterious but trusty partner, Pat Crimmins, Ray Rogina, wishing my dear wife
Oh.
a happy birthday today. And I hope she's hearing this because we are in the studio today.
We are in studio, thank God, because we've been on the festival circuit. I'm exhausted.
Happy birthday, Diane. And so, Ray Rogina, wishing you all a very pleasant week. Supposed to be a beautiful week.
Beautiful.
I'm headed north into Michigan somewhere for a while.
I'm headed to my office. I've got things due. I need hunker.
All right.
Is that the word?
Well, there we go. Ray and Pat,
Pat and Ray.
just a couple of guys. Have a good week. So long, everyone.